Hello everyone and welcome to 1923 Main Street, where pavement, powder, and perfect swells combine with travel style every week. I am your host Mike Belobradic, and today, why skate style is more than just clothes. Or in other words, how authenticity, function, and rebellion built one of the most influential looks in modern culture. And I'll start with a question that may make you cringe, and that is, what is skate style? I mean, what is skate style, right? I mean, I get it. That term, skate style, it can be a little off-putting to hear it thrown around because pretty much no skater would ever use the term skate style. And that's because skate style was never designed to be style. It was built on comfort, maybe a little bit about survival, but it sure wasn't built on style. In the early days of modern skateboarding, particularly during the rise of street skating in the 80s and 90s when it really had a resurgence, whatever you chose to wear as clothing had one job, well, maybe two: to move well and to be able to survive a little impact if that happens to happen. And it usually does if you're trying a new trick. Loose silhouettes weren't trends. Instead, they allowed you to have the kind of range of motion you need, protected you a little bit from falls, a little bit stops the scrapes and bruises. You sacrifice a shirt here and there for that, or a pair of shorts. Durability, in other words, against things like grip tape, rubbing, and so on. And allowing airflow on hot days. That's really important to me to this day. That is why I like loose-fitting clothes generally. So we wore what worked. Skaters wore what worked, and what worked just happened to look different than what everybody else was wearing. And that difference, as often happens, became an identity. Anti-fashion became the blueprint. One of the most interesting cultural twists in history, well, maybe not in history, but certainly interesting if you're into skateboarding, is this. The more that skateboarding rejected mainstream fashion, the more that mainstream fashion wanted skateboarding fashion. Publications like Thrasher were never meant to be luxury inspiration. They documented a subculture built on grit, concrete, independence. Yet here we are, decades later, and high fashion houses are borrowing the exact silhouettes that skateboarding popularized. Baggy denim, heavyweight hoodies, bold graphics, logo-forward t-shirts. That's why I say what began as anti-fashion has now become a blueprint. And you know, the fashion industry does this a lot. It looks for subcultures and tries to bring them into the mainstream. Sometimes they drag brands along with them. We never quite know if they went willingly or not, and we know some of those brands. You see them now everywhere, but authenticity still matters. In skateboarding, a graphic isn't decoration on a graphic tee. If anything, it's more of an affiliation with your colleagues, with the sport, with the brands that support that sport. Sometimes it's humorous, sometimes it's rebellious, sometimes it's even art, because there's some pretty cool skate art out there. Deck graphics, for example, they evolved into shirt graphics. Local crews all around the country, and the world really, screen printed their own designs, which I love. I grew up with a few folks who ran shops like that here in my area, and I loved it. Brands told stories through these icons and through their designs. And when someone wears a skate-inspired graphic tee, they're not just wearing a t-shirt with a cool design. They're signaling something, whether or not they're consciously doing it, because of the roots of where it truly came from. And that philosophy is something I try to harness in everything we do here at 1923 Main Street. These graphics aren't just filler. We put a lot of thought into it, believe it or not. It may not always look like it to you, but the kind of background I'm talking about is the kind of thought we put into our designs. And they really are different for skateboarding, snowboarding, and surfing because our backstories are different. A lot of us, like you listening, are involved in multiple board sports. And you realize the cultures are different in those sports, but they all share a kindred spirit. Outfits still matter because skateboarding is physical. Even if you aren't out there every day anymore like me, your clothing still carries that heritage with you, and that's because it feels right to you, because you grew up with it, and because it had meaning. So, a properly cut t-shirt matters. Fabric weight matters. Skate style that looks effortless but's built on intention matters. So, even with today's skate aesthetics appearing on luxury runways or in global campaigns from big designers, competitive platforms like Street League Skateboarding even have professionalized the sport in ways that we honestly couldn't even have imagined in the 1990s. But still, despite all that, thankfully, the heart of skate style remains local, it remains DIY, and it remains personal for those in the actual community and not those riding a fashion trend on its back. So real skate style isn't about brand flexing. I get you need to be sponsored, that's different. But it's about wearing pieces that feel like yours. If it resonates with you, that's really all that matters. That's the difference, and that is why skate style will never be just clothes. It is culture you can wear. All right, everyone. Thanks as always for listening. Follow along on social media at 1923 Main Street. Visit us in the shop at 1923mainstreet.com. I'll see you again next week, and as always, roam freely and ride boldly.